Welcome back to my office for the beginning of week 6. It's a little gloomy out here this week, but it's lively inside the forums. That lively activity extends across many of the different weeks. We're seeing a lot of spread out of the activity across some of the early weeks as well as some of the most recent weeks, and that's totally fine or actually good. So we encourage you to continue to participate at the rate that you feel comfortable moving through to hopefully get to everybody to the final project. It is useful also to look back even in some of the previous weeks. So even if you have sort of moved along to week 5 or 6, it's often useful to look back and see ideas that have progressed in some of the earlier weeks. So for example, some of the TAs pointed out that there's a really great conversation that it started in week 4 and continued into week 5 called Learning in a MOOC, 2 Students' Perspectives, which turned into 5 Students' Perspectives. As the conversation grew around learning in MOOCs, including this MOOC and others, a really nice discussion that's going on there that I hope sort of represents the kind of really great interactions and community building that we're seeing in other parts of the course. So just take a look at that and more generally take a look back at some of the previous weeks and continue to participate. As that interaction gets spread out, one idea that might be useful for a lot of you, I've emphasized this many times about working in groups, but it is a nice way to sort of say, no matter where I am within the course, I can be interacting with a particular set of people. So you don't necessarily need to be positioning your pitch, for example, in the right week as you develop that, but instead you could be working within your community and developing that over time and then ultimately putting your final pitch in the final forum. So do work within those groups. Many of you may not have noticed that there is an email setting where you can get email alerts on group activity. It's not on by default, but if you want to get updates on what's going on in your group, you can choose to activate those email alerts. Some of you have commented on the issue of points within the course and trying to understand what points mean in terms of passing. As you may know, 3% is the passing grade here, but there is a collection of things that you can do to get to 100% within the course, which is actually a very lofty goal and may not be the most appropriate one for all of you. And I just wanted to position that in the context of a famous story that comes from the games industry. Some of you may know this story. It's about the game World of Warcraft, which is a famous, massively multiplayer online role-playing game. And in World of Warcraft, you can get points for resting within the world. The idea is to sort of encourage people to take some time off from the game. And what they did at one point in the game was they gave more points for resting within your sort of home territory than just resting anywhere else. And what they did was they said, okay, if you rest in your home, you have 100% resting capabilities. And if you rest anywhere else, it's only 50% capabilities. And the community was very upset that this had cut their resting points in half. And instead what happened was they said, okay, we're going to change it so that you get 100% if you rest anywhere else, and you get 200% if you rest in your home. Now the points were exactly the same in the 2 cases. It's just the way they framed it, whether it was 50% and 100% or 100% and 200%. And in this latter case with 100% and 200%, the community was much happier. All that to say that the points are really just sort of a gauge for you, what you're doing in the course. And you should choose to weigh those as much as you feel appropriate. And it's really about getting your final project done within the course and not about those points. Those points are just indicators of things that you've done. And there is an awful lot in the course, and you should treat it as a buffet. That you don't need to eat everything on there. You just need to eat the things that you feel like make you feel fulfilled within that buffet. So please feel free to not do everything within the course, but you should do the activities that you feel like get you to the best final project possible. That final project is coming up now. It is this Kickstarter style pitch for an educational technology that draws together a lot of the things that you've been working on, and it draws in assessment, it draws in your innovative designs, and you're trying to bring that all together in your final pitch here. So we do hope that you take a lot of creativity in the way that you do those. You can choose your audience, you can choose your medium, but do make that as interesting and creative as you can, and hopefully it's something that's also useful to you, that's useful outside of this course. Some people may be interested in the X Prize on learning technologies that is existing right now, and I know that community has expressed interest in some of the projects going on in here, so you might have something that you bring there or into perhaps a Kickstarter pitch or some other kind of place where you might continue to develop this educational technology. So make it useful to you. We will be discussing those educational technology pitches this week in a live Hangout on Air at 5 p.m. UTC on November 20th. I'll be there, and hopefully Scott Osterweil, who you've seen in some of the videos, will be there as well. We're soliciting volunteers who will have their pitches critiqued in there. There is a forum called Select Pitch Critiques that we'll be selecting those pitches from. We won't be able to get to everybody, but that's where the place where we'll select volunteers from. So please, if you want to get your pitch critiqued live on air, volunteer within that space there. This week we will be talking about design-based research, which I think is a really exciting and really foundational way of research that relates to what we're doing in educational technology. So do pay attention to that, and hopefully it will open up your eyes to some of the interesting new ways that we're doing research in educational technologies. Some of you may question what's next. So part of what's next is we'll keep the forums open until the end of the year. We'll continue to give feedback as much as we can, and hopefully the community will continue to give feedback as well during that time as new projects appear. We will have a top-level project pitch forum so that it'll be at the same level as week, so people can continue to look in there and to continue to contribute in there. We will continue to look in there as well. We'll have at least one more video update like this coming up a little bit later. And if there's continuing to be activity till later in the year, we'll have another one as well to try to bring out some of those great highlights that we see in those forums and those product pitches. The final thing I'll mention is that there is a What's Next forum that will be starting as well for what's after this course. So we will have more courses in the spring and hopefully into the future. But we hope that the community itself persists and some of your relationships persist as well. And so we'll be asking for you to suggest ways that we can help facilitate that, whether it might just be about ways that you can have meetups outside of this space or other communities that you might migrate to. So please continue to contribute to the conversation there that will be going on. So with that, I will say so long for now, and we'll see you post-course in some of the updates that continue throughout the year.